Audience, please be seated. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh and good morning. Yang Mulia Tengku Dato Zafrul, Tengku Abdul Aziz, Group Chief Executive Officer of CIMB Group, conjointly the first National Adjunct Professor of USIM. Yang berbahagia, Profesor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Haji Abdul Syukur bin Haji Husin, Chairman of Board of Director of USIM. Yang berbahagia, Profesor Dr. Musa Ahmad, Vice Chancellor of USIM. Yang berbahagia, Profesor Emeritus Dr. Wan Hashim Wante, Member of the Board of Director of USIM. Yang berbahagia, Mr. Muhammad Shahriza Kadir, Member of the Board of Director of USIM. Deputies Vice Chancellor, the University Management Committee members, representative of Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia, Dean, Professors, Head of Department, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CO at Faculty Program. Before we start our event, let us pray that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala showers us with His blessing on our gathering today. For that, we would like to call upon Mr. Muhammad Fitri Muhammad Zainullah to recite a prayer. Please proceed. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Al-Fatihah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. حمدا حامدين، حمدا شاكرين، حمدا صابرين، حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيده. يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تنجينا بها من جميع الأهوال والآفات وتقضي لنا بها جميع الهاجات وتطهرنا بها من جميع السيئات وترفعنا بها عندك أعلى الدرجات وتبلغنا بها أقصى الغايات من جميع الخيرات في الحياة وبعد الممات. اللهم إنك تعلم أن هذه القلوب قد اجتمعت على محبتك والتقت على طاعتك وتوحدت على دعوتك وتعاهدت على نصرة شريعتك، فوثق اللهم رابطتها وأدم مدها واهدها سبلها واملأها بنورك الذي لا يخبو واشرح صدورها بفيض الإيمان بك وجميل التوكل عليك وأحيها بمعرفتك وأمتها على الشهادة في سبيلك، إنك نعم المولى ونعم النصير. اللهم أحسن عاقبتنا في الأمور كلها واجعل حياتنا حياة طيبة آمنة مطمئنة. ربنا عليك توكلنا وإليك أنبنا وإليك المصير. اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا ولوالدينا وارحمهم كما ربونا صغارا ولجميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Thank you, Mr. Muhammad, for the doa. Yang Mulia Tengku, Tan Sri, Dato-Dato, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the organisers, we would like to extend our warm welcome to Yang Mulia Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul, Tengku Abdul Aziz, distinguished guests, and respected audience, to the CEO at Faculty Program. Thank you for taking time off from your busy schedule to attend this auspicious talk. Yang Mulia Tengku, Tan Sri, Dato-Dato, ladies and gentlemen, the CEO at Faculty Program is among the key program under the Malaysian Higher Education Blueprint and mooted by the Ministry of Higher Education. The objective of the program is to bring the industry to the university by getting iconic CEOs of Malaysia sharing their wealth of industry knowledge and experience at the respective institution of higher learning. This program hopes to provide a platform for staff and students to obtain a more holistic view of the integration of academic knowledge and industrial experience, thereby making teaching and learning more dynamic and relevant. USIM is indeed honoured today to be the host university for the remarkable CEO Yang Mulia Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz, the Group Chief Executive Officer of CIMB Group. To begin the ceremony, we would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Dr. Musa Ahmad, Vice Chancellor of USIM, to deliver his welcoming speech. Please proceed. Thank you.
Terima kasih pengurusi majlis. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi washabihi ajmain. Dengan nama Allah yang Maha Pengasih lagi Maha Penyayang, selawat dan salam ke atas junjungan baginda Rasulullah SAW. Yang Mulia Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz, Group CEO of CIMB Malaysia, conjointly the first National Adjunct Professor of USIM, yang berbahagia Profesor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dr. Haji Abdul Syukur bin Haji Hussein, Chairman of Board of Directors of USIM, yang berbahagia Profesor Emeritus Dato Dr. Wan Hashim Wanteh, members of the Board of Directors of USIM, yang berbahagia Encik Muhammad Syarizal Khadir, member of Board of Directors of USIM, Deputy Vice Chancellors of USIM, the University Management Committee representative of Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia, Deans, Professors and USIM Head of Departments, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, salam satu Malaysia dan salam integrasi nakli dan akli. It is a great pleasure to welcome Yang Mulia Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz, the Group CEO of CIMB Group, who has been appointed as USIM first CEO of Faculty Program. So we give a big round of applause to Yang Mulia Tengku Zafrul. Thank you, Dato Sri, for coming. A special welcome to Tan Sri, Dato, VIPs, VVIPs and VIPs. So with this opportunity, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all distinguished guests and participants okay, to this event, which is organized by the Faculty of Economic and Muamalat, Universiti Sains Islam, Malaysia. It is really a pleasant to see many of you this morning. Okay, Alhamdulillah, thanks to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala for all the blessing, and with His permission, okay, we can sit together to enjoy the CO and faculty program at USIM. So our event today is part and parcel of USIM objective, okay, to keep relevant to industry, especially banking sector. Inshallah, by having today's event, we would have the opportunity to listen to a lecture entitled The Evolutions of Investment, Banking and Sukuk from the industry expert, Yang Mulia Tengku Dato Zafrul, Tengku Abdul Aziz. And inshallah, this will be a small steps towards a long-term collaboration, okay, between USIM and CIMB. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, banking system has evolved and becomes one of the components that are viable and strong in the entire banking and financial systems. The rapid development of banking industry, especially Islamic banking system, has always been important instruments to the Malaysia economy. So Malaysia has been a referral to many agencies when it comes to Islamic banking products development, such as Sukuk and Takaful. So part of the banking values is to encourage activities that nurture entrepreneurships, generate trades and business, and not to forget, to contribute to society development. Revolutionizing the banking human capital is today's important agenda. In order to pursue these values, the relationship between the education providers with banking sector like USIM and CIMB is vital in creating a comprehensive environment for the banking system to promote a sustainable socio-economic development for Malaysia as a nation. So in harnessing the right skill and talents, banking industry could engage universities to provide pools of talents, working together to develop skillful human capitals for the industry. So in fact, okay, with this collaboration, okay, we hope to reduce the gap between universities' output and industry expectations. Among others, initiatives such as expert sharing, for instance, appointment as external auditor, a Sharia advisor, curriculum advisor, and certification for staff could be ventured in the near future. USIM, as one of the education providers in academic program that relates to banking and finance, namely degree in Islamic banking and finance, master in banking, master in finance, and master in Sharia and audit, we are really looking forward to work closely with our industry partner, especially CIMB Group, in reinventing human capital to match the industry needs. I would like to quote what Jim Canselor has stated. People with first-class thinking is someone who generates his mind through 4 characteristics, which is self-awareness, curiosity, focus, and initiative. In order to produce first-class human capital in banking industry, we are ready for collaboration in the area of research, consultations, academic program development, and also student activities program. So smart partnership in activity like academic chair scheme, industry public lectures, and attachment for staff at the university industry, and vice versa, internship programs for students, zakat and CSR activities are part of the activities that can be done, okay, in the near future. Not limiting to the mentioned activities, I believe that FEM will be able to propose a sustainable collaboration with CIMB for betterment of the Ummah. So ladies and gentlemen, so we at USIM take serious of our vision to promote the integration of Nakli and Akli knowledge. This vision is achievable with important events such as the cooperation of USIM stakeholders, including the banking industry. So for this reason, I am sure that this is a good platform to bridge the gap between USIM and CIMB groups to lead the development of the banking industry, especially in Malaysia. So I would like to take this opportunity, so once again, okay, to Yang Mulia Tengku Dato Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz, for his commitment in sharing his meaningful insight with us this morning. So I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to everyone who has contributed to this program. May Allah shower His blessing upon us and may today's program be a fruitful one for all of us. That's about all. Jazakallah khairan kathira. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you kepada Profesor Dato for the speech. Yang Mulia Tengku, Tan Sri, Dato-Dato, ladies and gentlemen, before Yang Mulia Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul delivers his public lecture on the topic, the evolution of investment banking and Sukuk, we will firstly provide a brief biography of Yang Mulia Tengku. For that, we would like to invite Yang Berusaha Associate Professor Dr. Amir Shaharuddin, Dean of Faculty of Economics and Muamalat to the stage. Please proceed. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wa bihi nasta'in ala umuri dunya waddin. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yaumiddin. Yang Mulia Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz, Group Chief Executive Officer of CIMB Malaysia. Yang berbahagia Profesor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dr. Haji Abdul Syukur Haji Hussein, Chairman of Board of Director of USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dato Dr. Musa Ahmad, Vice Chancellor of USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Emeritus Dato Dr. Wan Hashim Wanteh, Members of the Board of Director of USIM. Yang berbahagia Mr. Muhammad Shahrizal Kadir, Member of the Board of Director of USIM, Deputy Vice Chancellor, the University Management Committee, representative of Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia, deans, professors, and USIM heads of department, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My role today is to introduce our speaker, Yang Mulia Tengku Datuk Sri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz. Indeed, we are very honored and grateful to have Yang Mulia Tengku this morning as the first National Adjunct Professor of Universiti Sains Islam Malaysia USIM. Ladies and gentlemen, Yang Mulia Tengku Zafrul is the Group Chief Executive Officer of CIMB Group, a leading Asian universal bank and a world leader in Islamic finance with presence in 17 countries worldwide. Hence, Tengku Zafrul is the man who oversees and manages CIMB Group, which has over 1,080 branches across the region. And CIMB Group has over 40,000 employees, but I guess now maybe less because of the slowdown of our economy. And as of 31st December 2015, CIMB Group is regarded as Malaysia's second largest financial institution with total asset of 461.6 billion ringgit. With over 19 years of experience in the financial service sector, specializing in investment banking, Yang Mulia Tengku Zafrul's last position was with Maybank Investment Bank Berhad and Maybank Kim Eng Holding as Chief Executive Officer. He also held senior position in Citigroup's Malaysia, Kenanga Holding Berhad, Avenue Securities, and he also experienced being an entrepreneur by setting up Tune Money Sendian Berhad, Asia's first no-frill online financial service provider. Tengku Zafrul started his career as a corporate finance executive in Investment Bank, and after that, joined Credit Agricole as a senior investment analyst, after which he became the advisor to the presidents of TNB. Outside CIMB, Yang Mulia Tengku Zafrul is an advocate of Malaysia's socio-economic development and currently heads the Kuala Lumpur Business Club. He is on the board of Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA, and Perbadanan Prima Malaysia. In addition to that, he is also a member of the Secondary Market Advisory Group of Securities Commission SC. Tengku Zafrul is also actively involved in developing the youth of the nation. He is on the advisory board of Faculty of Business and Accounting of Universiti Malaya, and soon will join us in FAM, as well as Young Corporate Malaysian. And he also the chairman of Enactus Malaysia Foundation, an international non-profit organization at grooming university students into future leaders. Yang Mulia Tengku Zafrul graduated from the University of Bristol, UK, with a Bachelor of Science in Economics and Accounting, and obtained a Master's of Arts in Finance and Management from the University of Exeter, which the only point that linked me with him, as I also spent some time in lovely town, English town in Exeter for my PhD. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we welcome Yang Mulia Tengku Zafrul to deliver his speech entitled The Evolution in Investment Banking and Sukuk. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, good morning. Yang berbahagia Profesor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Dr. Haji Abdul Syukur bin Haji Hussein, Chairman of Board of Directors USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Dato Dr. Musa Ahmad, Vice Chancellor of USIM. Yang berbahagia Profesor Emeritus Dato Dr. Wan Hashim Wan Teh, members of the Board of Directors of USIM. Yang berbahagia Muhammad Syarizal Kadir, Deputies Vice Chancellor, University Management Committee, representatives of the Ministry of Higher Education Malaysia, Deans, Professor, and USIM's heads of departments, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for inviting me to attend this morning's public lecture, and thank you for also coming this morning. I didn't expect so many students and lecturers as well here, so thank you. So I have, today I've been told by the Dean, not the Dean, sorry, by the Vice Chancellor that I have to speak either in English or in Arabic. So I think maybe, if you don't mind, I will speak today in Arabic. Is it okay? Again, okay, right. Anyway, just checking whether everyone's still awake. So I have here a slide. I'm going to be talking a bit more like what the Dato Dr. Musa spoke about, more about the connectivity between what we learn in theory and connect it back to what we do in practice. So the slides today is more about what's happening in the world, what's happening in Malaysia, what's happening in Southeast Asia, basically the industry trends, and relate back to what we are learning today. It's a journey, and this year has been a very challenging year. The first 1 month, you've seen markets very volatile. You know, we've seen so many challenging events that's happening on the economic front across the world. So this subject is actually always evolving, so it's not very easy to put it in writing. So, but let me go back to the history and then talk about what's going to happen today, and then after that, briefly talk about what I think the future will look like for banking and for the Islamic banking world. Okay, ini tadi just now Dato, just now our Dean has spoken a bit about me. I'm just slightly older than your Dean, but really, you know, the journey for myself is about learning. It's a learning development. I'm still learning about the industry and also learning about leadership. So running a group like CIMB is not just about understanding the business, but it's also understanding the importance of being a leader. So this is just a short version of what I've gone through. So if you look at my history, my expertise will be more on banking, primary investment banking, and also a bit about more about some experience about being an entrepreneur. Okay, never mind. We'll go to the next one. Just now I mentioned I will talk about the history. So this is how it all started. If you look back in the history of investment banking, in the late 1920s and early 1930s, United States, was the main capital market of the world. And in the 1930s, we suffered one of the worst economic depression globally. This is called the Great Depression that happened in 1930s. It's not just, it didn't just impact US, but it impacted the whole global economy. So there were many factors that lead up to this event, including deflation and growing over indebtedness, a very high level of gearings. So people were taking money out of capital markets and even their deposits from banks. So you see in that period, a lot of banks collapsed. In that period, it's estimated 4,000 banks failed in 1993, for example, alone. So this is when investment banking started. Corporations had to go outside the normal banking industry, normal banking, conventional banking loans, to capital markets to raise money. So this is the investment banking 101, just to for those who don't know what investment banking business model looks like. So investment banking is the intermediary, just like a bank, between sell side and buy side. Sell side and buy side. Buy side are the investors in this case, so the PNB, the Tabung Haji, the EPF, and then the sell side are the corporates and also the government, basically people who issue the bonds, people who need the money. So investment banking, for us, for someone like CIMB or for other banks that help, we like to connect between the sell side and the buy side. So our clients are either corporations, like I mentioned, or institutions. If you look at the products, there's advisory, there's financing, there's transaction banking, and then investors are looking at these products. They're looking for liquidity, they're looking for returns, and also private banking is also a list of people who will invest in the bonds and equities. Okay, this is the boom years. Boom years in 1980s to 1990s. Not sure whether most of you here have born yet, but if the 1980s, this was the boom. I'm not sure whether you remember this movie. This is more during my time. This is the Gordon Gekko. Michael Douglas is the actor for this. So 1980s were the boom years for investment banking, with the industry building a reputation for power and flair. This was enhanced by a lot of mega deals during these prosperous times. There were many sensational deals that was reported in the traditional media headlines, as well as the social media, the popular media. So these deals were bold and very audacious in nature. A lot of larger-than-life personalities behind them. They typically were big, complex, and large amount of leverage in the deals. So the pinnacle of this was in this movie called Wall Street. So, but this era in investment banking will always be remembered for the buyout, a lot of buyout, leverage buyout, where at that time regulation was still very relaxed, and access to cheaper and newer sources of capital was quite easy during this period. So just example here, again I'm using the US as an example. So there were a number of headline deals. I give you a few examples here. One is in 1988, there was a $25 billion buyout of RJR Nabisco by KKR. KKR is one of the largest private equity firm in the world now. Bankers made hundreds of millions of dollars in this transaction. And then we have Revlon, we have TPG. TPG, for example, TPG bought over a distressed airline. At the time, it's Continental Airlines. They bought it for $66 million. And then they turned it around and they sold it for $780 million. So those were the days. And then if you look at the Apple, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Apple. So Apple was listed in 1980. Apple's market cap then was only 1.7 billion US dollar. So today, when in 1980, if you invested in Apple, the price was, I'm not sure what the price was, but the market cap was 1.7 billion US dollar. Today, the market cap of Apple is 730 billion US dollar. It's bigger than the market cap of the whole of Malaysia Stock Exchange. That's how fast and how big companies have grown. So, these are some of the deals during that time. But in 1990s, there were also a lot of dot-com boom, and which was followed by a bust. So let's go closer to home, Malaysia capital market. Malaysia capital market development, this chart shows the stock exchange, our Kuala Lumpur Stock Exchange or Bursa, the market cap of Bursa. So we also saw the benefits of the investment boom that happened in the States, which also happened in Europe and Asia. So until the late 1980s, capital markets, when I say capital markets, I mean the stock markets and the bond markets, are mainly used to help government. Government have a lot of long-term projects, projects when it comes to infrastructure, like roads and power. They use the capital markets to tap to get funding. And government securities accounted for nearly 3/4 of the fund raised in the Malaysian capital markets. These were funds, like I said, more for the public sector investments. And then in the 1990s, the government started a program which they followed really from the United Kingdom, is to privatize the company. So you've seen Lembaga Elektrik Negara became TNB, Telecom Malaysia went for listing, a lot of the departments, government departments was corporatized, and then after that went for IPO. And this privatization program really benefited our capital markets. As you see now today, probably the last listing was done, big listing of a government agency was probably Felda. So there were greater needs for capital markets, and this helped the investment banking and also the corporate banking world in Malaysia. So let's just talk about Sukuk for a while. The history and development of Sukuk market in Malaysia. This emergence of modern Islamic financial market in Malaysia actually is very recent. If you look at it, the history, it started in 1983 when we have our Malaysia's first Islamic bank come into effect. That's Bank Islam Malaysia. And then we had a lot of concurrent developments with the capital market. So the Islamic banking was also built connected to the history and the growth of the capital markets. And the Sukuk was the first. We wanted to be a leader in the Sukuk, which is the Islamic bond versus the conventional bond. And that opened up the market, and the Sukuk market started around early 2000s. And then, of course, Securities Commission, Bank Negara, and the government were busy at that time developing the rules and regulation, because we were the pioneer in this area. Over the years, the market has grown in sophistication, and now Malaysia is one of the largest Sukuk issuer globally, and nearly 50% of the global Sukuk market in 2015 alone is actually Malaysian issuers. So that's how dominant and how progressive Malaysia has been in this global Sukuk market. So that's the history of today, if you look at the chart, the diagram, it shows a bit of the history and how successful we have been in the Sukuk market. And this is examples of many Sukuk issuers that has been over the years. As you can see, more and more large and notable corporates have opted for Sukuk for the years. So there were many world first issues with sizable amounts, and innovative structures were originated in Malaysia and was followed by other countries. So for example, the first ever Sukuk was issued by 125 million ringgit by Shell. That was in 1990, right? The first global sovereign Sukuk was issued by our government, my Malaysian government. That was a $600 million Sukuk. The first rated Islamic residential mortgage-backed securities, 2.5 billion, 2.05 billion, that was done by Chagamas. And recently, in 2015, the first sustainable and responsible Sukuk. This was to help the schools and all that, of 1 billion by Khazanah National. This is a CSR bond, the first ever globally. We also have a lot of experience with the foreign issuers. You know, Malaysia led the way in Islamic banking, but we also led the way in Islamic capital markets, especially the Sukuk. So because of the development of this product, a lot of investors now understand the importance of Sukuk, and also the corporates also appreciate why they should also tap into these new investors. So Malaysia has issued Sukuks for corporates from Asia to the Middle East and even to the US. So people are coming here to Malaysia to issue the bonds to tap into our markets. So these are some of the countries that came here, some of the corporates that came here to Malaysia to raise money. And we managed to do that successfully. And these are all very large amount. You can see there, you know, Gulf International Bank raised 3.5 billion ringgit. You got the ASEAN Development Bank, ADB, 4.2 billion ringgit. They all tap into the market because there's more and more investors that come to Malaysia to invest in the Sukuk market. It's not just Malaysian investors, but also the foreign investors. But of course, you know, when you look at Sukuk, we also look at the non-ringgit. So non-ringgit, this is the US dollar, also are done in Malaysia. There's not just a ringgit level of Sukuk. There's US dollar, there's British pound, there's euro, and also there's recently a issuance of Sukuk in Chinese renminbi. So the markets have developed, you know, from ringgit to dollars to pounds to, you know, now the Chinese renminbi. So and it's interesting to note, right, that Sukuks are not only issued by predominantly Islamic countries, but it's also issued by non-Islamic countries. We've got recently, since last year, we had Hong Kong issuing the Sukuk. We had UK government issuing the Sukuk. We had Luxembourg issuing the Sukuk. So we have a lot of new benchmark. So when they develop their Sukuk, when the government of United Kingdom issue a Sukuk, it will help the corporates in UK to also issue Sukuk using the government of UK's Sukuk as the benchmark. So this is important development that, again, have started in the 1990s. And today we can see the benefits. Let me now talk about the equity markets. I touched about Sukuk just now. You know, capital market is not complete without the equity part of the market. So if we look at this graph, this is the global equity deal values. The equity market in Malaysia has seen significant development from 2000 to 2007. And then, as you know, in 2008, we were hit by the global financial crisis. Malaysia were not as affected, but in Europe and US was really affected by the global financial crisis, which affected Asia to a certain extent. So the growth after the 2007, you see from the graph, the growth rate of capital markets never really recovered since the global financial crisis. And you can see that from 2011 until today, the ECM, equity capital markets, and IPO markets are not so healthy. I mean, it has plateaued, it has not grown. It's still 15% below the peak in 2007. So the same story for debt capital markets. If you look at the debt capital markets or DCM, you know, you've seen the growth in Sukuk, you've seen the growth in conventional, but if you look at the last couple of years, in conjunction with the growing role of private sector, the issuance of private debt securities, which took off in 1980s, has grown steady, but not been growing the same rate as before. So there is although there is shift from equity to debt in the late 2000s, the markets have been quite flat in recent years. This follows the equity market. So the debt markets and equity markets do have quite a positive correlation between the two. And then this is a chart which shows the wallet size. This is how much the banks get paid by our customers, by the issuers, by our clients. So if you look at it, this chart shows the ECM revenue and M&A revenue. So this is, in our balance sheet, in our P&L, at the revenue line, at the operating income line of banks, there is a line called non-interest fee income, right? There's an interest income and non-interest income. This is basically the advisory fees. There's no interest or funding income here. So you see that from 2006 to date until today, there's a downtrend in the fee income. So not only the capital markets in ASEAN, this is for ASEAN, which includes all the 10 countries in Southeast Asia, that you can see that not only are the capital markets in ASEAN plateauing, but the revenue generated from investment banking deals and growth margins are shrinking as well. So the message here is all the investment banks, despite the success of the bond market, despite the success of the Sukuk, despite the success of the IPO ASEAN over the years, it has plateaued. So we are facing different challenges, but we're also facing, on the advisory side, we are facing income going down because competition is getting stiffer and margins getting thinner, and basically markets also getting softer. So this trend, what's affecting this trend? There's a lot of factors. These are some of the factors that I think are important, and also you cannot discount the impact of market, political, regulatory, and technological factors which impacting the investment banking, the traditional investment banking model. So the Asian capital markets and investment banks are really at a crossroad now. So today, for example, only one IPO last year in Malaysia, big IPO. In Singapore, there was 0 IPO last year. So we are now at a crossroad, right? You've seen the rapid development, the rapid evolution of the global financial markets and headwinds. We've seen the shrinking margin. We've seen stricter regulatory framework set by the regulators. We've seen, competition from global banks. We are seeing competition from non-banks. All this fintech, a lot of companies who are outside the banking sector now competing with the banks. I will touch upon this later. And then, this means that banking, we have to evolve. Investment banking, I'll start talking about investment banking first. And then that means that services and products available in the capital market must evolve as well. We need to change and adapt to the needs of the new group, the new generation of businesses. So the investment banking industry is recalibrating. We do have no choice. Either we change or we cease to exist. So as a result of the tough economic climate and reducing investment banking wallet size, many global banks have started scaling down their investment banking operations. We've seen in this region alone, in Southeast Asia, especially in Singapore, even in Malaysia, a lot of banks, especially investment banks, are leaving the industry, leaving the countries that they cover. We've seen even commercial banks. Last year alone, we saw RBS, we saw Macquarie, we saw Nomura, everybody leaving the space because of the tough competition and because of the declining profit. And CIMB is no different. We also face the same challenges. So we have implemented our own T18 program to transform ourselves to be more competitive and effective. So we want to consolidate our operations to become leaner and more efficient to enable ourselves to grow at a more sustainable pace. So what we learn is, we cannot afford to stay, we look at the legacy, you look at what happened in the history of investment banking, we've done very well, but now we've gone through this period, so things have to change. So what you learn about, all the things that we've all learned for so long about investment banking, suddenly is not applicable anymore, about corporate banking, about advisory. So now we evolve. The wholesale banking, there's a new norm. So the traditional investment banking business model now is not going to be able to support. So what I learned in school, what I learned in university about investment banking, study now is out of the door, out of the window. You know, what we learned before is not going to be able to support our clients' requirements going forward. So what did we do? So most of us have different ways of handling the challenges. But for us at our team here, we developed a universal banking model, and we transformed our investment banking division to a wholesale banking division. So wholesale banking division from the chart here. So last time we just have investment banking, but now we have to break it up. Now we have asset management, you know, CIMB principle. We have equities, which is the stockbroking side. We have equity capital markets, which does the placement and syndicate. We have the advisory side, which advise corporate finance deal, which advise M&A, which advise ESOS and all that. And we have corporate banking and treasury and markets. So now we also have to do lending. You know, this is both in terms of both Islamic and conventional and markets. So, you know, we have to work closely, not just with the CIMB. Last time it was CIMB Investment Bank on its own, but now we have to work together with CIMB Bank, and we have to work together with CIMB Islamic Bank. So we have a model where everyone have to work together to survive, right? So we look at talent, we look at balance sheet, we look at network, we look at technology, we look at information flows, and then get all the products offering to be the same. Because if you're a client, you want to meet 1%, right? You do not want to meet 10% from one company, from one bank. So our clients now demand more than just advice, right? We have to require to execute deals. Deals get larger, more sophisticated, and they are more demanding on balance sheet commitment. They are more demanding when it comes to borrowing money from the banks. So in fact, you know, last time M&A and ECM make big money for the companies, for the banks, but now less. So, but this is the new norm for the industry. Okay, this chart shows the regional IB, regional investment banking, gaining market share at ECM. I mentioned just now global investment bank, no, the UBS, the JP Morgan, the Nomura, the Deutsche Bank, and all that. They are retreating. They're retreating from the region. So it gives an opportunity to the local and regional banks like CIMB, like DBS, you know, like you know, Bank Mandiri, all have a chance now to take that space. They've left that space, so we need to be conscious of the opportunity in these turbulent times to take over the space that they are leaving. So we've seen a lot of them close down or scale down. So what we've done is if you see this chart, the regional IB market share is growing up versus the foreign IB market share. And over DCM is even more pronounced. You know, if you see the chart, the foreign investment bank market share is, you know, very, very small in that chart. It's been growing smaller and smaller, right? So that line shows the number of issuances, and this chart shows, you know, 85% last year of the debt market deals are done by local regional banks. So you've seen how global banks, they come when the times are good, but they can just leave the region when the times are bad. So a bit of history of CIMB so that you all understand what we did during this time. So CIMB started as an investment bank. That's why I gave the history of investment banking. And then before we became a bank today, our history was an investment bank. We started with 200 people in the early 2000s. Only 12 years ago, from 200 people, we became 41,000 people today, from one division to 17 countries in just 12 years, right? So that's a bit of history. So CIMB started in 1974 as a niche merchant bank. We provide advice, we give a good name when it comes to restructuring. We did IPO. We were recognized as the top advisor when it comes to this deal. But you know, it was it was also a small investment bank. It was a JV between Pertanian, Bering, Sanwa, and another 4 other banks. So, you know, in the 80s, we made our name, but after that, we realized that, you know, we can't just survive as a small advisory investment banking unit. And then what happened was in the early 2000, we took over, if you can see there, GKGo. GKGo is a Singapore-based stockbroking and investment banking outfit, which have presence in a lot of the ASEAN countries. So when we took over in 2005, you know, we became a regional investment bank. And then the next year after that, you know, same year we also took over Bank of Commerce. So Bank of Commerce at that time, you know, was under Commerce Asset Holdings. So we took over Bank of Commerce. So first time from an investment bank, we became a commercial bank plus investment bank. Then we took over Southern Bank, then we took over Bank Niaga. So we've been buying up a lot of other banks across the region, you know, including Thailand, Indonesia, and, you know, most recently we are also starting in Vietnam. So we are, you know, we started as a very modest operations in the region. So today, our platform, we have over 1,000 branches across the region, 41,000 staff, 13 million customers, and you know, in our broking, we cover more than 1,000 stocks. If you look at some of the countries that we are present in, we just one country we're not there yet, which is Philippines, which we hope to be next year. Our position in ASEAN is very dominant in the investment banking space. This is one example, a bit of advertising. So ECM, you know, we are still in top 3. Debt capital market, we are number 1. M&A, we are there. Sukuk. So, you know, as a Malaysian bank, we started off to capture the market in Malaysia, but today we have managed to gain market share in the whole of Southeast Asia, even against the big multinational banks. We are there, we compete in Singapore, we compete in Indonesia, we compete in Thailand especially, but we managed to be at par with our competitors. So I talked a lot about investment banking. I talked a lot about why investment banking need to evolve. I talked about a bit about how CIMB, as an example, evolved. But we also need to understand what's happening outside. So, you know, when you look at what's happening outside, ASEAN is a market. You know, Malaysia was the chairman of ASEAN last year, and we looked at how ASEAN can progress and how ASEAN can help the capital market, how ASEAN can help the banking and the community. So a bit of a history or a bit of facts about ASEAN. If you look at ASEAN where we are, you know, ASEAN sits in a sweet spot politically and geographically, right? ASEAN lies between the West and the East. We have a lot of heritage, a lot of intellectual and cultural heritage that is partly inherited from Middle East, from Europe, and then it's easy. People come to this region, find it very easy to do business compared to some of the other regions. And then we have a set of values that the West sometimes find it very, very good, and especially when the work ethics of the culture that we have in ASEAN. Some facts here might be interesting for you. So ASEAN as a whole is actually, if you look at ASEAN as a community, as a single market, it's quite a significant player in the global economy. These are some of the interesting facts here. You can see here. Do you know that we are the number 1 in crude palm oil production as a region? We're number 1 natural rubber production. In terms of Muslim population, we're also number 1. Issue of Sukuk, we're number 1. You know, even if you look at the size of overall population, we are number 3 in the world. So these are some, it shows the significance of the region in terms of population, in terms of number of the growth potential of ASEAN. So ASEAN, as you know, there are 10 member states which form an economic powerhouse. If you look at our GDP of ASEAN, we are the 6th largest in the world. In 2015, ASEAN GDP was the 6th largest in the world. And if you look at the world GDP of ASEAN is about 2.5 trillion US dollar. And then we look at this table, there's rapid and stable growth over the past 15 years has made ASEAN to become a global force today. So when you look at, your investment thesis about Malaysia and all that, you must always connect it back to ASEAN, because the story of Malaysia going forward is there, but the growth has to come from our investments outside Malaysia. So rapid growth, the last 15 years have seen this where we are today. If you look at the table 1, from growth from 2000 to 2015, ASEAN grew at a CAGR of 5.6%. This is the third fastest among the 10 largest economies. Only China and India grew faster than ASEAN, right? If you look at table 2, the growth is rapid, but more importantly, the growth was stable, right? The growth in table 2 shows that our volatility from 2000 and 2015 ranked the lowest among the top economies of the world. So all the countries, including Malaysia, grew, but they grew consistently, and it shows the sustainability of the growth. And table 3 is the resilience in the aftermath of the 2008 global financial crisis. So the 2008 GFC, or global financial crisis, affected the States, affected Europe, affected even some of the countries in the Middle East, but Malaysia and ASEAN were quite resilient. It shows the strength of that. And because of what happened in 1997, the ASEAN financial crisis, we have learned, and we've shown that we've learned, and we've shown that, even, for example, the debt of government is only 50% of GDP. ASEAN debt, even Malaysia debt to government GDP is less than 50%. Just to share with you, US government debt is 105% of GDP. UK's government debt is 90% of GDP. So moving forward, if you look at ASEAN economic growth trend, it's expected to continue. This is the forecast, 2020 forecast. So we are projecting ASEAN to even be bigger than UK, and we get bigger by 2020. So the growth is there. So that's why you see a lot of investors coming to Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Thailand, because they see the potential of ASEAN and they feel that they have to be here, the businesses, the FDI. So, but what we are trying to do in ASEAN is to make sure that the ASEAN companies capitalize this first before outside companies, our companies that are not within ASEAN, capitalize it earlier than us. Okay. So the other thing is infrastructure. I mean, Malaysia, as you know, we are blessed because we have quite good government policies. We have good funding ability to fund a lot of the infrastructure project over the years. So we are there. But if you look at ASEAN as a whole, there's a growing middle class that's pushing for better infrastructure, better governance. So ASEAN countries are expected to see more growth, like I said, the next 10 years, and then we will see a growth in the middle class, and these middle class people middle class generation will demand better standard of living, where they want better infrastructure, they want improved governance. And just an estimate by the World Bank, we need $60 billion of money to build infrastructure in ASEAN, right? But if you look at the ASEAN infrastructure spend, we always have spent less than China and India, so we need to focus and spend more to make sure that we grow to support the growth of our industries. The other one is trade, okay? The ASEAN Economic Community, that's AEC here, something that becoming an important agenda for not just Malaysia, which actually it was announced when we were the chairman of ASEAN, but the AEC is expected to reach far-reaching economic consequences. We are going to try and promote better intra-ASEAN trade and investment and strengthening the global importance of ASEAN as an economic bloc. So if you look at this chart here, single market and production base, what it means is, barriers to trades in goods and services will be brought down or at least kept to a minimum. We look at flow of investment, so people who want to work in China, Indonesia or Thailand Right now, there's a lot of restriction. If you want to work in Indonesia, you need work permit, so these things we need to reduce. We told the policymakers, maybe someone from US or UK or India to come here, or Bangladesh to come here. Maybe you should make it quite strict. But what's wrong if a Malaysian want to work in Indonesia? So we told the Indonesian government, within ASEAN, you should have free, like what's happening in the EU, as long as skilled labor, you should have free movement. Right now, it's not. So we are fighting for it. For example, for us in CIMB, we have operations in Indonesia and Thailand. Every time we want to send someone to Indonesia for 1 month, we have to ask for a work permit, work visa. So this is very difficult if you want to promote ASEAN. So these are things that we need to do. We want to have equitable economic development. We want also integration with the global economy. So ASEAN have to be united in one. FDI is important. Malaysia benefited from the FDI. We've seen how, I'm on the board of MIDA, and we've seen, despite the challenging times, Malaysia have been very successful in attracting FDI. This year is going to be challenging, but difficult, but so far, it looks promising still, despite the challenges. So we showed this chart here, shows that the share of FDI that stays within the ASEAN region. So there's been a steady rise, in the FDI. If you look at, we had thought that 20% was a little low within ASEAN. This is the intra-trade of FDI. That means one country's investment in Southeast Asia, like Malaysia investment into Thailand or Thailand investment into Singapore. We think that this can grow, the opportunity, the potential to grow this is even larger. So we're only now at 21%. ASEAN is, like I said, is a growing force in global trade. Between 2000 and 2014, ASEAN trade grew by 2.3 times. So now it's $3.1 trillion. It shows that we have grown so fast. And if you compare ourselves to US, China, and Germany, for example, ASEAN as a share of global trade is now 6.6% in 2014. Germany is only 4%, China is still ahead at 9%. So we are catching up. But what is interesting is that most of ASEAN's trade is done within the region and within the ASEAN economic community, which I'll discuss on the next slide. So you look here, a lot of the success of ASEAN is because of the inter-regional trade between ASEAN, not necessarily outside ASEAN coming into ASEAN. So, the reason why I wanted to just touch about ASEAN in my presentation, because when you do your analysis, when you do your feasibility studies of investment for a company like us and for other businesses, we need to look at the landscape, because Malaysia is quite saturated. And for us to grow, our investors want us to look at ASEAN and of course one day Asia and globally. So to conclude on these ASEAN issues, the potential of ASEAN is immense, but of course there are challenges. It's a journey. Integration does not move without any challenges. There could be a lot of improvement when it comes to commitment from some of the countries. So we are hoping and we're optimistic of the ASEAN integration. Okay, the other part I want to talk about is the challenges that we face. So customer habits are changing. So when I talk about corporates, we also talk about individuals. Corporates are changing, but individuals are changing. So what does a bank like CIMB need to do? Again, what we learned before in textbooks, what we learned in all the theses that we've done, somehow it's becoming more and more difficult to apply those principles. Customers are now becoming very digital savvy and transferring more of their interaction from brick to mortar stores. This is one example. I'm not sure whether you remember, this is again my time, Blockbuster. Blockbuster was a video shop. When I was studying in UK, you have Blockbuster in every shop, probably in every road, I mean every district or every town. In Malaysia also there's a lot of CD shops. I don't know, you buy your the CD, the illegal CDs in the shops. And now there's taxi, tower records. Last time even you see a lot of record shops, music shops. Do you see that anymore in the supermarket, in the malls? You don't see any more record shops in the mall. EMI and all that. Hotel, Barnes & Nobles. So if you look now, Blockbuster is replaced by Netflix. Netflix has come to Malaysia. Started with iFlix. So nobody rents a video anymore. Right? Nobody buys a CD anymore. Taxi, I'm sure you've all tried Uber. Uber is huge. And if you look at iTunes, people don't buy records in tower or in record shop. They download from iTunes or they listen to a lot of sites now which have free music, Spotify or anything like that, right? Hotel, Airbnb, and then now you can people are you can stay in any resorts or any houses for Barnes and Noble. In Malaysia, we still see a lot of bookshops, but the numbers are reducing. The profitability of the bookshop that you're seeing are actually reducing because people are buying online, all the books. So the message here is the traditional way of thinking and the traditional way of doing business, or sad to say what you learn probably today may not be relevant tomorrow, right? Because you need to understand that challenges, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the customers, in the shoes of the corporates, because they also have to change to adapt. And we have to change first before they do, because we are in the service sector. So if you look at, just to share with you, the market cap of Uber is bigger than any taxi companies in the world. And they don't own a single car, right? Airbnb market cap is bigger than any hotel in the world, and they don't own any hotel. So you don't even have to own. The whole thing have changed, okay? So a quote here, some people don't like change, but you need to embrace change if the alternative is disaster. That speaks for itself. So, and also when it comes to funding, when it comes to banking, CIMB and the other banks are now facing challenges because we are now competing, I'm not competing against Maybank. So in the future, I might be competing against people in this room who will come up with a new app or new idea of banking, which is different from what bankers think. Because the problem with bankers is they are very conservative, and at the same time, they think very inward. They're very scared of change. And of course, regulatory framework is also very strict, so we have to comply. So but people outside the banking industry, they think out of the box. They know what's happening, and they move and react faster, right? So, for example, this crowdfunding. Last time CIMB will say, okay, I can do this, I can raise money for you. But now there's an internet crowdfunding. Securities Commission just issued 5 licenses to crowdfunding companies who now can, if you have an idea, you want to raise 1 million or 2 million or even 100 million, you just advertise online, a prospectus online, and all of you can just use your money from the bank or credit, money from the bank to invest online. Anybody can do that now. If you look at the data here, I want to share with you. In 1999, 71 billion was raised via IPO through funding through internet. Okay, and he has come to Malaysia and Singapore last year. So in the next 3 to 5 years, when you all graduate, you can raise. You want to start a coffee shop, you want to start a business, you can raise online. And what's going to happen to the banks? Last time we can lend you money to start your restaurant, but now you just go online. Someone believes in your model, he can fund you, and we've seen that, happening in Malaysia recently. This is another one, Western Union. If you have, for me, we have mates and all that. They all send money to Indonesia, but now they tell me, oh, I don't want to go through CIMB. I got another way, cheaper. It's free. It's 25 cents. Bitcoin, or there's so many products now out there. So it's tough, right? If we don't change example, this one in US, example Bitcoin, but Malaysia there's a few examples also. This is stockbroking. I started my career in a stockbroking house. I always make a phone call to a fund manager, and then remiser always call the customers, private banking call their customers. But now when you call a fund manager, they say they don't want to talk to you. They will read from the internet, and when they want to execute, you call them, okay, what do you want to invest, which counter? They say, don't worry, I'll go to the online. I don't need to talk to you. And then because I don't talk to you, I don't have to pay you. So, these are affecting the whole investment banking business. It's good for the people. I mean, it's good for the public because it gets very cheap. But it also means that we have to change. So we are now going into online. That's why you have CIMB clicks. You have all this. Now, just for your information, we have 300 branches in Malaysia. And our main products is to sell mortgage, to sell hire purchase. But do you know in Malaysia, CIMB sell 90% of their mortgages outside the branches? Because nobody goes to branch to borrow money to buy a house. Nobody goes to the branch to buy a car, hire purchase for a car. So we have to go out there. And a lot of the payments now done by CIMB Clicks. That's why if CIMB Clicks is the new branch network that we have. Of course, we still need it for certain reason, for certain purposes. But not many people are going to branches anymore. I don't know whether any of you do banking through branch. So one day you will see banks without any branches, and that's happening very fast. And then stock market also is developed. You've seen Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, Google. In just 1 year, all these companies created value of $440 billion US. The biggest bank in the world is valued less than Facebook. It's valued less than Google. It's how strong the strength of the banking of technology and innovation. So as a bank, we need to keep up the changes. Even as individual, we really need to keep up with these changes and be prepared to facilitate facilitate needs of the new age and the new generation. So conclusion, a bit more about what we are doing so that you understand. We had to go into very digital, a lot of digital initiative. Internet banking portal, I mentioned about CIMB Clicks and also iTrade. You are in business one day, you will need this iTrade online financial services custom product for payment. And then analytics, we have enhanced our data mining. So the big data is real. You really need to look at, understand your customer through data, through big data. We're investing a lot on that. We do a lot of modeling, sophisticated modeling to get customer segmentation and insight. So we need to understand what the customer like, what the customer do in a day, what he spends on. So we need to get all this data, and these data are important. That's why we're working with other companies like Celcom, we're working at other companies like Tesco, so all to share data so that we can capture the customer. For example, here, plug and pay, where you can now pay credit card through the phone. This is the Malaysia first point of sales to business. So if you have a small business you start, people nowadays all carry credit card or touch and go. You just click on your phone, where you click on your earphone, you just swipe your card and you can, basically get the money from the credit card. So touch and go, CIMB actually owns touch and go. So touch and go is a very important part of our business, and soon, but people are saying, why do I need touch and go card? So next year you will see touch and go, you can pay toll on your phone because people don't carry cards anymore, right? So you will see all this development coming very fast, and touch and go will be just an e-wallet rather than a card. So conclusion, what is the story for the future, right? So in conclusion, the capital market, the banking industry, the Islamic banking industry, basically the whole financial landscape is premised on two areas. What's happened the extent of competition and the nature of environment, the ever-changing nature of environment which we operate in. So I would like to conclude by leaving you with some questions that perhaps you can ask yourself. What's in store for the future? How will technology alter the finance industry? We've seen how it altered the finance industry, but going forward, it will continue, and even the speed of change will definitely be faster. And so we have to make sure we adapt to this. When you look at Malaysia alone, you need to also look at ASEAN now. You can't just look at Malaysia in isolation. What will ASEAN and integration of ASEAN, what's the impact on Malaysia? Because we don't step up, our competition are not just within Malaysia, but within the region as well. For investment bank, which is a title for today, will we exist in the next 5 to 10 years? We don't know. During my time, everybody wanted to be investment banker. Now, everybody wants to be a digital banker. Nobody wants to be investment banker anymore, right? So, the thinking here is we need to really start thinking about the future. And the lessons learned personally, I'd like to end on a few things. First, whatever you learn in theory is good to understand the basics. But in real life, especially when you are working in an environment where the landscapes keep changing, this is not just for banking. This is telco as well. You can see from the telco business, it's not easy for mobile companies to now survive. Everybody is now going on data. So these are lessons that we need to learn, that we need to make sure that after we have understand the basics and principles and the fundamentals of things that are obvious based on the history, that the facts and history, we need to know that it may not be applicable. The difficulty for banks and difficulty for some companies that do not exist is because they did not adapt to change. I give you one example. Again, I'm not sure your generation remembers this, but last time we had a Kodak film. They never, Kodak film last time was one of the biggest company in the world, but now they don't even exist. And the worst thing is Kodak, which is the negative. They actually started digital camera. They founded the digital camera technology, and they said, "Oh, this one won't take off, so don't worry." Because they're scared that the digital camera will kill their Kodak films, which it did in the end. But other companies took over that technology and then compete against them. And you've seen even on mobile phones. Again, during my time, our favorite phone is Nokia, I think. But now, I don't know any of you in this room, are you holding a Nokia phone? It's either iPhone or Samsung. So these are scary developments. So for banking, also is the same. That's why I mentioned, you might not realize, but the medium and smaller banks, 9,000 banks have closed down globally. And you've seen many, many banks merging because it's very hard to survive out there if you don't accept that things are changing very fast. So that's last slide is a bit of advertisement for CIMB. So I hope that you all continue to bank with CIMB. And if you don't bank with CIMB, maybe you can start with CIMB. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Yang Mulia Tengku, for the most insightful and interesting lecture.
Thank you.
Now, we would like to invite Yang Berbahagia, Professor Emeritus Tan Sri Dato Haji Abdul Syukur, accompanied by Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Musa Ahmad, to proceed to the stage for the next session. Yang Mulia Tengku, Tan Sri Dato, ladies and gentlemen, to mark this inaugural program with our very first National Adjunct Professor, we would like to invite Yang Berbahagia Professor Emeritus Dr. Haji Abdul Syukur to present the letter of appointment and some books as a token of appreciation to Yang Mulia Tengku Dato' Sri Zafrul. Please proceed. Thank you.